Why is sensory science important and why do so few people know about it?
We are all human beings. We all have senses, but I think that, like myself, most of us do not pay fully attention to senses. I think that there are many companies around the world, and especially in my country, thousands of companies that make decisions regarding product development without taking into account human senses. Sensory science is very important, but I think it's far from reaching its potential, very far. The main reason I think it's because it's still too technical and too academic. It started with the roots from the academia and still has not evolved as many other businesses.
Could you give an example how sensory science improves product development?
I'll pick two examples. And this huge company, Airbus, they were presenting their study, and it was very interesting that they were searching for the right click of the compartment that, saves your luggage above your head. So it was the right sound that would transfer to the person the best safety sensation. So they were looking for that click, that sound, and they were using the sensory science. So that for me was amazing, and it's a very nice project by a major company. In our case, we have done one study, and this is just one of many. We had a customer, they were producing soap bars, and they were selling quite okay, but they were not reselling the soap bars. And after we studied for some time, we ended up understanding that the intensity of fragrance when consumers were evaluating at the supermarket did not reproduce when they using the soap bar in the shower, for instance. So then they were buying, but they were not repurchasing. And that could only be studied with sensory science, because it was a problem that had to do with the intensity of fragrance and not with preference. So by using the sensory science, we were able to separate and identify that the intensity during usage was not to the right level. And then after doing that, the customer came to us and they said that problem was solved, and then they could go for bigger market share. So, and that's really impacting business.
Despite the impact sensory research has on product success, still many companies are not asking for this service. How come?
So much money is spent in developing new products, in producing new things, in distributing. It's huge amount of money, and sometimes the product is not developed as it should be. So people are buying, but then they don't like it. They don't feel right with any of our senses or even emotions, and then it's a lot of money which is lost, a lot of time, a lot of investment. So I think it's up to us in this community. We are all involved into the sensory science and its applications. It's up to us to deliver better communication, to reach the big business leaders like CEOs, CFOs, marketing VPs, the financial models that we could develop that would clearly show them that small amounts of investments in sensory-focused research could provide wonderful results, impact, and help people to become happier. Because actually what we do, and this is, I think, something very unique in what we do. Everything that we do which applies sensory science is, at the end, improving happiness, because we feel better. There has been a lot of development in technology in many areas in humankind, but not so much into improving happiness. And everything that we do improve happiness. So there's a huge opportunity ahead of us, I think.
Sensory science and sensory research are most often associated with food, drink, and cosmetics. In which other areas could sensory make a difference?
There are so many opportunities, and we hear very little of jobs being done. Due to some private circumstances, I had to spend lots of times within hospitals, and I've been, following patients and see how difficult their life becomes when they are being treated, and sometimes it's hard treatments. Their senses, they change a lot when they are under that treatment. And so I think there's a lot of things that we can do with the sensory science to try to decrease that type of suffering, either with the environment, either with several things that touch, between quotes, that patient while that patient is being treated. And I don't see much being done. Another area, for instance, is like, call centers. We all have from time to time to call centers. And sometimes, the tone of voice of that person which is calling just give you that sensation, well, this is not going to be solved. It's not paying attention to me. The tone of voice is not giving you the proper message. So, and these are things, the sensory science can help. I mean, can you imagine how much improvement can be done into call centers all over the world? Banks, for instance, banks have these huge call centers to respond to customers, and I think most customers are not happy at all with that type of services. So there's a lot of things that can be done in so many areas. Right now, artificial intelligence, what's being done? I mean, what's being done in sensory terms? So that, there will be new methodologies, new way of doing things, but what are the senses being placed? What role are they playing? And who is helping these people developing these new things? So there are many opportunities. The interface between, machine and man, how many things that can be done using senses and using the sensations that humans beings have in order to improve that type of relationship interaction between machines and men. And the more and more sophisticated technology evolves, the more and more room for that type of improvement there is. That's the way I think.
According to product developers, sensory research should be quick and cheap, but this does not always lead to the best results. What do you advise clients?
When the discussion gets to a price discussion is because the value is not perceived by the ones who are buying. And if the value is not perceived, it's not a problem of the customer, it's a problem of the supplier. The supplier has not been able to prove and to show what they can do for the customers. And then the discussion ended up by discussing price because there's no value added perceived. So, for instance, if we look at the major traditional market research companies in the world, they are companies in, their turnarounds in around billions and billions of euros or dollars. And they do some research which they may claim has something similar to sensory, but in general they don't have that expertise. And the companies that have that expertise are in general much smaller and have a hard time competing. And these companies don't have the expertise to sell high, with different speeches, with different presentations, with different financial models, and have a hard time in showing the real value. So that the discussion is a much different discussion. It's like, oh, this is the problem that I have, so you have this solution, and this solution fits very well what I need. And then, when you reach that, price becomes a non-issue, almost a non-issue. Of course, you have to work with these companies. Many of them, they have cycles of budget, so it's not something that's going to work like this, but we have to start, focusing that type of thing.
Where do you see sensory research in 10 years?
Well, it's kind of a dream, but I think it's a possible dream. There has been many waves of human development, and just to mention some, in recent times, there has been re-engineering, there has been ensured quality, there has been, business process. There has been so many things, so many new technologies. But all of this has been reached with very little attention to senses. So I think, if senses can be added into almost any new development, sensory science can be the next wave to really impact, the happiness of the people and the business, so that everything and everyone and every company can be more effective, and we will be much happier.
Alex, thank you for the interview.
Thank you very much.